All right. Hi. I've realized in these lives I do like a shoulder wiggle, and I'm like, oh my god, I get too
Okay.
excited because I love all the people that I've had on to talk in this format, and I'm really excited to talk with you today, Erin, and talk about Chamber of Mothers. And to do just kind of a quick intro, some people might be joining from the Chamber of Mothers side. So they're like, who is this Molly person? So I'll do a quick intro on me and then I'll kick it to you. So I'm Molly from Maternal Stress Project here on Substack, where I'm exploring the stressors that affect women, mothers, those in birthing, cycling bodies across a lifetime in order to have more effective conversations, a more effective view on stress and women's health. And key to this discussion is really considering how stress reducing solutions, stress reducing opportunities exist beyond the individual. So, really separating this perspective that stress is an individual problem and a personal responsibility to fix. Because that's just BS, but I won't get into that rabbit hole. And going beyond the individual means really looking to family and community and policy. And Chamber of Mothers is sitting pretty in that space in terms of just doing incredible work at these broader community and policy levels, recognizing the opportunities to really help mothers thrive by ensuring that their health is prioritized, that their needs are prioritized, that they're getting adequate structural support to make that happen. And Erin here, Erin Erenberg is with me, and you're the current CEO. You're one of the co-founders of Chamber of Mothers. Um, Someone I've come to respect and admire over, I mean, gosh, we've known each other for like over 5 years now. We can talk about that a little bit. Hasn't really been that long. And so you're way better at elevator pitching yourself than Chamber of Mothers than I am. I just like to ramble, and I love you guys so much, so I could go on for a while. So I'm going to kick it to you to do a quick Chamber of Mothers and Erin intro.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Molly. And I love the wiggle. It's like a puppy, we're
I'm
just happy to see.
too excited. It's my tail.
And how do we to reduce maternal stress? We dance. So, yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, Chamber of Mothers, I mean, it's really everything that you said. We came together acknowledging that moms are carrying too much individually and feeling like it's our fault when we're stressed, when we're overwhelmed, when we're not living up to this internalized picture of what a mother should be, right? And so when we came together, we said, well, what is really holding moms back, number one, and what support systems can moms across the board agree that we need? And that's how we landed on we need paid family and medical leave. After we have a baby, to support our parents as they're aging, to support ourselves as we go through illness and difficult times. We need accessible, affordable childcare, and we need better maternal health care. And
Mm-hmm.
these are structural, not only structural and systemic breakdowns, but these are places that are grossly underinvested in at our
Mm-hmm.
federal level, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when there is an underinvestment, you then see this trickle down through our society that, for example, under maternal health, women simply don't know enough about our bodies, about our psyche, about our physical state. And it's not only postpartum, you see women encountering that in peri and menopause. And
Mm-hmm.
even the lack of knowledge creates stress, right? And I
Yeah.
think what we
Yes.
do,
Exactly.
and I don't know if this is a human thing or I know it's a me thing and it seems to be a woman thing. When we can't find an answer, we think
Mm-hmm.
we're screwing up. We're like, oh, I must be
Mm-hmm.
alone in this. It must be a me thing. And I think what's really wonderful is there's a shattering of that. There is so much
Yeah.
cultural conversation around women's health, maternal health, mental health. But what we don't see is our government meeting that moment. We're really not
Yeah.
seeing that.
Yeah.
We really are seeing in a lot of places, and I do want to make sure we anchor in hope because I have a lot of hope. That's what keeps me in this work. We do just see this, it's sort of an attitude of we don't need to invest in it because moms will figure it out. I think that's what's unsaid. And
Yeah.
I think, we came together in this moment of rage. It was a
Yeah.
moment of collective maternal rage because we were sick and tired of having to figure it out. We had just survived a pandemic and
Well,
become
yeah.
teachers. Yeah, it was 2021, right? Like,
I mean, I think that's what I was gonna just bring up
yeah,
was, part of the origin story. And I think part of when my thinking around what became Maternal Stress Project was around the pressure cooker of COVID. And in that pressure cooker of COVID, for those of you who remember those good old days when paid leave was real damn close and childcare was real damn close, and it was the Build Back Better bill of 2021. And there was this groundswell of folks in the care space, in the motherhood support space, and you had your own groundswell, became the co-founders of Chamber of Mothers, which was this. Well, obviously now we're getting this across the finish line. Like, this was
right.
an issue that nobody could see, and then the curtain lifted, and everyone saw how
Exactly.
everything's on fire. Everything's been on fire, but now you can see that everything's on fire.
Correct.
And okay, we have simple solutions here. We
Yeah.
have a few simple solutions. And for me, what that was, I had actually teamed up with Darby Saxby. We wrote an op-ed that went into CNN. We're like, this is a public health issue. What
Yeah.
a cool public health issue. Like,
Yeah.
you give us paid leave, exponential,
Improvement.
improvement in health.
Yeah.
Like, we see this happening.
Yeah.
And that's also where Chamber of Mothers, you all got together and it was like
Yeah.
the fed up and fired up. Like, okay,
Right. Yeah.
look at what we've been carrying. Now you see it. Now you can't unsee it. Fucking do something, right?
100%. And I used to say a lot in early days, and it's relevant now still. What I didn't want to happen, and I think the other folks that co-founded this organization didn't want to see happen, was all of this cultural conversation around women leaving the workforce in record numbers.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, being elbowed out of the workforce in
Yeah.
record numbers.
Let's
Finally,
be
a
honest.
great
Yeah.
conversation kicked off by Eve Rodsky around us holding too much of the household labor and the mental load and all these great vocabulary words that
Yeah.
help us communicate and name what we were carrying. All of that was happening, and it couldn't just be for a moment and like, okay, moving right along. Because what happens when we move right along? Moms keep carrying, moms keep suffering, moms are
Mm-hmm.
still buried under the overwhelm and the stress, and
Yeah.
nothing is structurally. So we came together with this idea that, hold on, there are 85 million moms in this country who have between 11 and 15 trillion in annual spending power, who control 84% of household spending decisions. What I hear in that is power.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to all come together and unite around issues that we know are holding us back. So there's an over 80% voter approval rating for federal investment in childcare, paid
Yeah.
leave, maternal health. So if we were to all come together, say, forget all the other BS and all the things that, folks would love to divide us on. Can we not? Can we
Yeah.
stop tearing each other down and dividing? And
Yeah.
can we just agree we need these three things? And if we
Yeah.
have these three things, it would make a really great impact. To your point, you would see that, moms are doing better. So our families are doing better. So our
Mm-hmm.
communities are doing better. So our workplace is doing better. So our nation is doing better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It makes
that's
so
why we
much
started
sense.
fighting. It makes so
Yeah.
much sense,
It
right?
makes
And
so much
so
sense.
what we did to address that was say, well, we've got to really get in the ears of our lawmakers, and we've got to sort of push our collective hip against these heavy
Mm-hmm.
mahogany doors in DC and say, we're here and we're going to keep coming back until you make our concerns mainstream concerns, because we all know that
Yeah.
that's what gets voted on. That's what gets funding priority. If a lawmaker feels a sense of pressure, feels a sense of stress, like, let's just
Yeah.
flop our stress onto them and say, we're going to
Yeah.
put you under pressure to create this change. If they hear that enough times, if you have a staffer that has to pick up the phone and hear 10 times,
Yeah.
your constituents want paid leave, they have to write an official memo, right? And so we said, what if we were all going to DC regularly? We were meeting with members of Congress, insisting that these issues are important issues. What if we were educating moms across the country about how they can take that fire in their bellies around this and turn it into useful advocacy? Everything could change. And so we now
Yeah.
have 50 chapters across the country. And there's a huge education component in terms of, how can we affect change? What does it look like creating change on the local level, on the state level, on
Yeah.
the federal level? And, something in our early days, it was a lot of rage. And I believe that rage is incredibly useful. And what we learned over time is that we couldn't just speak to folks that agreed with us. We had to
Yeah.
speak to folks who, whether they agree or not, they have been reluctant to endorse these issues. They've
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
reluctant to put support behind investment in maternal health, childcare, and paid leave. And so we now have built really durable relationships with Republicans, with Democrats across the political spectrum, because we know that we need everybody to take this
Yeah.
seriously.
And I think, on that point, and I want to come back to the three pillars too, because I think it's important that you really pick these three that overlap. Um, I want to come back to the fact that, go back to 2021 and Build Back Better failed. And I think what that kind of kicked off, and I love how you kind of explained what has happened kind of in the meantime,
Mhm.
because it's almost that reflection moment
Yeah.
of we were so close.
Mhm.
Why? We were so close. And it was so obvious that this was so needed. We were in a freaking pandemic that crushed women, that was crushing families, that was like harming humans. Like it was this moment of it felt like, I mean, the worst kind of global pandemic stars had aligned, but
Mhm.
it was, is this what it takes to get this across the finish line? Do we need a global pandemic to get these things across the finish line? And then when it failed, it was like, oh, that's not enough. So what was missing when we got to this point? And so I feel like since it has failed, and the reason that I really love the energy and the strategy that Chamber of Mothers brings to this, and it's something also that when I've come back and kind of thinking through what I am doing with Maternal Stress Project, is what do we need set up and moving forward and in the ear and being talked about and having heightened awareness? And what do we need in place when that big door is really opening again?
Mhm.
And so, I think it's that question of lessons learned. I think one of the things that's an interesting language change is really thinking about from a maternal health perspective, even from a maternal stress perspective. It's maternal health really used to be perinatal health, right? Like we always considered it in this perinatal window, which is critical. It's, a super heightened period of time for health risks. It's an exposure of what health risks are already on the edge that might crop up later.
Yeah.
And so part of this is really expanding, right? What are we talking about when we're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
maternal health here?
Right.
And why is this overlapping with paid leave? And why is this overlapping with childcare, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's really timely. I was, speaking with Representative Lauren Underwood today
Yeah,
about the momnibus. And the momnibus is squarely focused on maternal mortality. And we know that it is 3 to 4 times higher within the Black community, within our
yeah,
Native maternal community. And that is critically important. We cannot, you know, over 84% of maternal deaths are preventable.
yeah.
All those moms should be here today.
Preventable.
It's sickening.
Preventable.
It's sickening. And
Yeah,
so we absolutely have to do something about that. And to your point about expansion, we also have to look at the fact that, a mother after she has the baby shouldn't just be dropped on the curb. It's what we do. The mom has the baby, she
yeah.
has a week appointment, and there's a lot of conversation there about when she can be sexually active again. No mom I know has that top of her list, but we're not told about. Let's revisit the fact that you had preeclampsia, you had
Hmm.
gestational diabetes, there were
Yeah,
concerns about your blood pressure. How is that going to impact you a decade or 2 decades later?
yeah.
We now know, even within the last year, there thankfully has been a lot of data and research to say that, there will be follow on maternal health concerns based on those conditions. And our doctors and our care team needs to be addressing that. We also know
Hmm.
that maternal mental health, which there's a lot of conversation in the zeitgeist around that, which is
Yeah,
critical. We know that we lose most moms in that tender first year, not from preeclampsia, not from gestational diabetes. It's no longer hemorrhage. It is maternal mental health condition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact
Yeah.
that there is delay, there is, that the moms are not getting the care that they need is an
Mhm.
absolute crisis. And it's really important that we look at what are the pieces of legislation that could address this, right? So
Yeah.
I go straight to the Moms Matter Act, which is about substance abuse disorders, which are
Mhm.
about mental health. And so
Yeah.
bigger picture, if I were to really oversimplify what Chamber of Mothers does, we encourage mothers across the country to tell their stories. Then we who hold sort of the infrastructure of Chamber of Mothers spot patterns in those stories. And then when we look at legislation, we see where do the patterns connect with what is being offered in legislation. So if we're
Mhm.
seeing a pattern of a mom had a mental health condition that troubled her or troubled her family. There was delay. She didn't know where to go. There wasn't a hospital. There wasn't an expert. And we see legislation that says, let's get a better workforce. Let's
Yeah.
have not only a 1-800 number, but is there a follow up to that? If we see legislation that says, let's make it more possible for moms to get care from their primary
Mhm.
care physician so she doesn't end up in the ER or urgent care later
Yeah.
that year, that's the kind of legislation that we endorse. And so, what I hope anybody listening to this will hear from me, your story, your experience of motherhood is powerful. Your pain in
Mhm.
it is powerful. The hope that you have is powerful. If you're having a hard time, you are not alone. And that is powerful. And what makes it powerful is that when you tell it to someone else, you're sharing it, you're holding it
Mhm.
together. You don't feel shame. You're able to do something about it. And also, if you join up with Chamber Mothers, we are able to take your story and connect it to legislation so that things can be
Yeah.
better. And you're
Yeah.
able to advocate within your locale, in your state, in your city, at the federal government level to say, hey, look, this is my story. And I also want you to know this. Every single person that is elected in Congress, everyone elected, period, anywhere, they're there to represent you. They're there to
Yeah.
make your story matter. And so we try to just really help moms remember the power that they have.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, connecting it with legislation is so powerful, especially in these days and age. And you're like, well, there's nothing we can do now. You're like, actually,
Yeah.
there's all these
Yeah.
little things that are in action. And, even just thinking about the close work that you all do with Lauren Underwood, Representative Lauren Underwood. And I just love the quote that she had about how 80% of maternal deaths are preventable, and just maternal health in general. And just how she said, this is not a moonshot.
Yeah.
This is not a moonshot. Like,
Huh.
we're investing in and looking to and like bringing glory to all these, incredible moonshot ideas when it's like we have this crisis in front of us
Yeah.
that we know how to fix. Like, we
Correct.
know how to fix it.
Yeah. Correct.
Just get to work. And I think, what you brought up, and what I also again, this is like love fest on Chamber of Mothers. The way that you have structured the three pillars and, to keep this view on what are the three key issues in their big sense, and also that broken down level that you emphasized. Especially in terms of, I always think of them, and maybe you do too, probably. There's such a cool Venn diagram between paid
Yes.
leave and childcare and maternal health,
Yeah.
and how one affects the other. I mean, it's how one affects the other positively and negatively when they're not available. Positively, huge. They overlap. You solve one, it takes the pressure off another. Solve this one, takes pressure off this one. Solve this one, takes pressure off this one. Solve all of them.
Mm.
Happy world, right? So thinking about just going to reflect back on those Chamber of Mothers pillars, you have paid family leave, affordable, accessible childcare, and investments in maternal health, and really looking at how these will have impacts on the gaps that are most deeply affecting mothers. I mean, what do you feel like in terms of what you are currently working on and how you said you're looking to the stories and looking to the legislation that might be really filling these gaps. Do you feel like there's things in motion that are really hitting on each of these pillars right now?
I do. And I think, when you talk about the intersectionality, which is like a very academic word, it's really important. And the super oversimplified way I think about it is if you have a life event and the life event is a mom has a baby, you've got to make sure the mom survives and thrives. You've got to make sure, and so that's maternal health care at its most basic level. You've got to make sure someone is taking care of the child, right? And then there's that symbiotic relationship where you're looking after the mom because in many cases she's feeding the child with her body. You're looking after the mom because she needs some sleep in order to feel well enough to look after her
Hmm.
baby and to help her baby learn sleep. In order to do that, it's either a parent who's providing that work
Yeah.
or it's a child care structure. That could be a
Yeah.
grandparent, a friend, a neighbor. It could be a center. It's going to be a parent. It's going to be a person. It's going to be a center. So that's very plain and simple. Maternal health, paid family medical leave, and childcare. We have to
Yeah.
support this massive life event, which is a new life coming into the world and a
Yeah.
life that is incredibly vulnerable and a mother that's vulnerable in that moment as well. Very vulnerable and also very powerful. So we have to, when we invest in one, it's really, we've got to invest in all three. And
Yeah.
the pieces of legislation that I'm just flat out super excited about. There's a piece of legislation that Ro Khanna is announcing that is really, it's so beautiful because it provides flexibility around childcare where funds
Hmm.
can go to family, friends, neighbors, kins, parents, or it can go to a center. There's also something in there about increasing the pay for providers because
Hmm.
what just needs to be said out loud is quite often childcare providers are parents and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
So what's missing here is that, again, the academic way of saying it is that we don't value care. But just to make it very simple, we do not pay people for taking care of others. We just
Yeah.
don't. And
Yeah.
so we don't pay them high salaries, high wages, whether it be in education, whether it be in the healthcare system. We certainly don't. The child care system. And there's that same resistance to paying a parent to take leave from work. And I
Yeah.
sometimes say it should be called just paid time to care. You're not really leaving anything. You're just working in a
Yeah.
different space.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I do see really hopeful legislation. And it's interesting that you bring that up because there are pieces of legislation that we know members of Congress are taking like one bite at the apple. And we look for pieces, okay, will this advance things for folks without taking anything away that people already have, without making their lives more difficult? And when it's bipartisan from the jump, we know it has a better path to success. And so those are some things we look at that we many times you don't love the whole entire package, but you say, you know what? My job is to make sure that mom's priorities are mainstream priorities, that our lawmakers are at all the things that they're voting on in a week. They're thinking hard about paid leave, childcare, maternal health, and we will just
Yeah.
bang that drum over and over.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there are pieces of legislation that are one bite at the apple, and then there are things like the Family Act, which is a wonderful piece of paid leave legislation. There are things like, Ro Khanna's universal child care legislation that are just fantastic solutions. And to your point about Build Back Better, which was originally the American Family Rescue Plan, it was so wholesome. And I mean that in
Hmm.
every way. It just brought everybody along. It thought about adoptive families. It thought about women who were victims of or survivors of domestic violence. It talked about care for self. It talked about affordable childcare 0 to 5, where we have that huge gap. These are the solutions that we really need. And I need everybody to know that when we are going to DC and we are telling stories and we are like hoofing it with hurting feet through the halls of Congress, these are the stories we're telling. And this is what we're begging and pleading for.
Yeah.
And when there are base hits that we can put our support behind, the idea is we want our lawmakers to be working together to center these three issues.
Yeah. I mean, and even thinking
Mm.
about, you know, with the overlap of maternal health and having the health conversation and having, with the broader look at thinking about how childcare is healthcare. And a lot of that, I don't think it'll be interesting to see how legislation gets pushed forward or how the conversation gets pushed forward. Because part of that is when you don't have investment in childcare, you have more precarity in the system.
Yeah.
And it's the precarity that is actually affecting the working parents, mostly the mothers,
Yeah.
especially at this health level.
Yeah.
And so if you have multiple structures, I mean, it's interesting now that you're saying it out loud. I'm thinking about it. So if you have multiple outlets
You're right.
for paid care, I
Right.
wonder how that would help set up a different kind of network that would ensure some degree of stability in a currently kind of unstable
Right. And just having flexible
area.
options and having
Yeah.
backup, thinking about after work care, after hours
Yeah.
care. You really
Yeah.
got to think about I think there's a step away from daycare among childcare advocates, and I think it's important because I think when someone says daycare, you're thinking about one system, right?
Yeah.
And the truth
Yeah.
of the matter is, it's who's looking after the children, who's looking after
Yeah.
the people that can't care for themselves while their parents are working. And it's also important to point out that right now, 75% of moms participate in the workforce. We just are
Yeah.
working. So I know there's a lot of chat about the divide between working and not working. Let's talk about the fact that like the overwhelming majority of moms are in the workforce and many of them are
Yeah.
working because they need to work to live. And so in order to do that, we have children that are at an age that they can't be left alone. And so we have to look at a number of different solutions that are, developmentally sound, that are safe,
Hmm.
and nourishing for the child, because to your point, when a mom or a dad knows that their child is left in conditions that they feel good about, they feel less stress. I mean, you're carrying that all day.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't, if you feel that you need to be doing more for your child and you can't, or they're in a situation that, to your point, feels precarious, that's extremely stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. And even shifting into, paid leave, because of course, you have, again, perfect overlap because
Mhm.
if you need access to taking time, not only after you've had your baby and you're physically recovering, you're shifting into motherhood, you're often nursing and establishing breastfeeding. Um, and then, for both parents, because we also need non birth parent support during this period of time, thinking about how that extends beyond, and maternal just being a very broad term. And you can expand it out into caregiving more generally, like where family leave comes in if a child gets sick at any point in life, if a family member gets sick, if you need, care to help with an aging parent, an aging family member, someone else who's sick. It has that, especially when you think about how it has impact on mothers, that's then you get into sandwich generation squeeze, right? And so, you know, one of the things that I believe you're with having chapters across the country, you also can activate at the state level to some degree,
Correct.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, our chapters have been a big part of getting laws passed at the state level. They've been fantastic. Our Arizona chapter, Gilbert chapter, was a huge part of laws that were passed about support during the postpartum period for moms.
Yeah.
We have our chapters that are activating around paid leave at the state level, which is critically important. Yeah, I mean, the state advocacy is huge, and just knowing your state legislators, these are the
Yeah.
people that are often really important to getting the structural support that you need. And it's also, we're playing the long game here, and it's a game that
Yeah.
has to be played, and it's not for everybody. Let me tell you, like, you really have to hang in there and have discipline around it and know that it's going to take a lot of repetition, and it's going to take a while, and you have to be ready. And part of what the chapters can do is really be that highs where, oh
Yeah.
my, look, we have a potential for this senator from a red state to support something, and we really need constituents from their state to come and
Yeah.
say why it's important. We got to like act together and act within a time frame. So that's where we have people that are able to help us understand legislation and what's in flight. And then we have our amazing moms all across the country who can say, like, I'm ready to go. Like, when
Yeah.
I get activated, I'm ready to go. I'm going to tell my story. I can go to DC, or I could do it from here. But we need those stories.
Yeah. So I promised that we would keep this on the shorter end because we could go on for like the
No, yeah.
entire day, Erin. I think it's a good transition though to really ask what is bringing you hope right now? What are you seeing out there? Glimmers of light and hope and I don't know where things are moving in a what seems like a dark space sometimes, but what are you seeing that's bringing you hope?
I am seeing people across the political spectrum take the health of a mom seriously.
Mhm.
Really look at the fact that if mom's not well, no one is well, and that we need to do something about that. I think people have different ideas about what can be done, but I am so grateful for all the groups that are doing this work. I mean, there are so many strong voices in this fight that are using different advocacy tools and really staying in it. Like I just moms are not willing to be ignored anymore. And moms
Mhm.
are loud and we are not willing to take it on the chin. We are not willing to be the solution to problems we didn't cause.
Mhm.
And it's really healthy to express
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
really healthy to express that together. And that gives me a lot of hope.
I love that. Yeah, I was thinking about the question on the flip side, and I think you kind of nailed it at the beginning and then took it a step further, which is just knowing that so many of us out there and beyond that are the awareness level, we're past step one. We're
Yeah.
past awareness. We're past
Mhm.
the conversation. We're past shattering this wall that kept us, good and quiet and just thinking that it was our problem. So why should we ask for anything? We're past that.
Yeah.
And we're in this stage of, okay, now we're going to do something about it. It's not easy, which is you have a strong stomach for the work that you do.
Some days.
You're like really strong stomach. And I've been alongside you and your team on the hill, and I am like, I don't even like deep breaths. Like you all are. It's impressive to see
You are too,
the.
Molly.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But oh my, I am like I can handle that being on the hill like maybe once a year. But you guys just that it's so important to keep showing up and when I went with you, we showed up. It was right after the ugly bill passed, and it was
That's right.
sad days.
Yeah.
And it was like, have we lost? And, for me, I was like, did we lose? Did we lose everything? And you all were like, we're still we're showing up. We're
Yeah.
showing up. We're having the conversations. We're keeping the door open. We're here. And this is still a thing that we're talking about. And we're not going to let you think that this is over. So we're here. And it was
I love that you
really cool
remember
to
that.
see.
That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite moments in terms of like as a leader, what keeps me going. I remember Whip Clark saying, "You're one of the only advocacy groups
Yeah.
who comes back when things didn't go the way you wanted them to go."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's critically important. Just that we will continue showing up. We will continue showing up when it's hard. We will continue showing up in a friendly climate, and we will continue showing up in an unfriendly climate to our issues because we know at the end of the day that people across America, I don't mean to be cheesy, but it's true.
Yeah.
Americans agree that we need
Yeah.
all these issues. And for us to not show up is to sort of say, okay, I guess it's not that important. It is critically important. And we will continue to keep showing up.
Yeah. Ah, Erin, you're amazing. Chamber
You
of
are too.
Mothers
Okay.
is, I just, again, like love fest. I really appreciate the work that you are all
Well, I appreciate
doing.
the work
And
that you're doing, and we
whew,
need it. And you
we're in it
did
together,
one. Yeah.
I always think of it as if I have a role to play in this, it's really helping to establish the how it is connected to health when we know that women's health has
Yes.
been so neglected. So we
Yes.
don't have the research to say XYZ. And I'm like, okay, I will show you XYZ. And
Yes.
then for Chamber of Mothers, it's like, okay, now this is what we are doing about it.
Yes.
And we're going to keep knocking on your door
Yeah.
and we're going to keep firing everyone up and we're
Yep.
not going to back out until it's
Yep.
done. Which I really appreciate. Again, strong stomach, super impressive. So there are chapters across the country. People can join. Moms can join. They can find whatever is closest to them if they
Yes.
are,
And follow
they
us
have
on
one available.
Substack.
Yeah.
Join us on
Yes.
Substack. Subscribe to our Substack. Truly, really and truly, we have moved a lot of our communications over to Substack. We find it to be a great way to interact with
Yeah.
people. All the news about our chapters and how to join, you can find it on our website, and you can
Yeah.
find it by following along on our Substack. So, Molly, thank
And
you
you're
for this
new
opportunity.
here. You're new.
We're
You're
new.
new at Substack.
New to
So
Substack.
this is a
Yeah.
really good opportunity to just get on it, jump on it, subscribe, follow
Yes.
them, support their work, all the
Yes.
things. So
I
that's your marching orders for everyone who's watching. Go follow Chamber of Mothers on
Thank
Substack.
you so much,
And
Molly. Thanks for
yes,
everything you
thank
do
you,
and you are.
Erin. It was
Yeah.
so great to see you and talk with you. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Likewise. Bye,
Okay.
my friend.
Bye.